Canada's economy is a resource-based economy. Its number one export every year is crude oil, and it isn't even close. In 2022, Canada exported more oil than the UAE in terms of barrels and value. So as long as oil exports are a cornerstone of the economy, then economically speaking, the more oil Canada can develop and export, the better off it is. Economically speaking. It isn't just a question of volume though, like people often think. Most of Canada's oil comes from the prairies, and that isn't even close. But Newfoundland produced around 73 million barrels of oil in 2023 and as much as 104 barrels in 2020. The province collects around $1 billion a year in royalties from oil production in the Grand Banks, and Newfoundland is very interested in collecting more. Since 2018, the government has been working with oil companies to develop this largely untapped area. If they can get more flowing, it will mean more royalties, of course. But again, cranking the volume isn't that simple. As the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers likes to remind us, the work that goes into finding the deposits, getting the oil out of the ground, packaging it, and getting it ready for export is all economic activity. Oil and gas companies like to take credit for direct jobs in oil exploration and production, as well as indirect jobs in oil services businesses and induced jobs that are part of the businesses that wouldn't be there if it wasn't for oil production, like everything else in Fort McMurray. It accounts for the 9th largest part of the Canadian economy. And wow, would you look at that? Real estate's up there at number 1. I wonder if this has anything to do with the housing crisis. Anyways, out in the Grand Banks, there are all sorts of known deposits that aren't yet flowing, and plenty of new areas that remain undrilled. Since 2018, the push has been on to get it developed. The government is cutting deals with operators to upgrade the production platforms. They're reinvesting some of the fees they got from bids and seismic surveys to try and encourage drilling, and investing a very small fraction of that money in training a Canadian workforce that doesn't yet exist. Offshore oil exploration and production is a marine enterprise that gets done by big, specialized industrial ships. When those ships come to Canada to work on the Grand Banks, they often hire temporary foreign workers to operate them. Stena Drilling operates the Stena DrillMax, Stena IceMac, and Stena Ford. These are the ships contracted by ExxonMobil to drill their Newfoundland exploration wells. Stena was approved to hire more than 400 temporary foreign workers for the work it did in Canada. And there's more where that came from. All of these top marine oil service companies were approved to bring temporary foreign workers to Canada to work high-paying oil services jobs. And frankly, it's hard to blame them. A boat like that just can't pick up a new crew and captain wherever it sets up for a contract. It's only ever going to run right if it's being operated by a consistent staff that understands it. Companies need to apply for special permits just to bring trade ships into Canada. Ships like that don't exist in Canada. Stena is a Swedish company whose ships are flagged out of the UK. Most of the companies that run these boats are based in Europe, and especially Scandinavia, where there's a lot of oil and gas activity in the waters off of Norway, and has been for quite some time. Norway exports about half as much oil as Canada. It's about half of the country's exports. Wow, look at that. Real estate is way down there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 13th. I wonder what... Ooh. Oil and gas deposits were first discovered in the Norwegian continental shelf in the 1960s, but weren't commercially viable at first. The first production came in 1971, and Norway quickly established that the state would have a 50% ownership interest in every production license. It also established a state-owned oil company called Statoil. With a 50% direct financial interest in all of the oil wells and a 100% interest in the wells that Statoil drilled itself, Norway had tremendous incentive to develop offshore assets. And it did. The Norwegian continental shelf developed quickly, and with plenty of partners. Today, most brand-name oil companies have interests offshore of Norway, and the Norwegian government generates a lot of revenue from it. The tax scheme in Norway is a tax on the project's net profits, as opposed to the per barrel royalty the Canadian provinces charge on oil and gas production. That revenue pays for one of the best healthcare systems in the world, free university education for everyone, and a $1.6 trillion pension fund. That's 3 times the size of the CPP. And Norway only has 5.4 million people, about 1/7 as many as Canada. Since Norway only taxes the net profits from oil and gas operations, companies who operate there can avoid taxes by investing the revenue they generate back into the projects. And that's part of the reason it's so well developed. There are pipelines linking the production areas back to Norway, and more pipelines that push the product forward to European gas markets. Remember how Norway's petroleum exports are more than half gas? And Canada's petroleum exports are 70% oil. Oil deposits almost always come under a layer of pressurized natural gas. That natural gas can only be economic if there's a way to bring it to market. Norway developed those gas pipelines because if they weren't there, then the gas that doesn't get burned to power the oil drilling would just get flared off and wasted. It's a lot better for everyone if it gets piped to shore, processed, and sold. Just ask the country with the $1.6 trillion pension fund. And so much talent and infrastructure that when Canada, a country that exports twice as much oil in dollar terms, wants to develop its offshore petroleum assets, it calls the Norwegians. Canada collects about a fifth as much petroleum revenue as Norway directly, which isn't really a fair metric. If you add the income tax, Canada collected about 60% as much revenue as Norway in 2023. Statoil, the state-owned oil company that the Norwegians started in the 1970s, is now called Equinor. It's around the 10th largest oil company in the world by revenue, and the Norwegian government still owns a 67% controlling position. The four biggest Canadian oil companies put together don't generate as much revenue as Equinor. Equinor owns an interest in two of the producing operations in the Grand Banks and is a partner or operator in several other blocks. Their discovery at Bay du Nord is estimated to contain more than 1 billion barrels of recoverable oil. Equinor drilled a few more holes in it this year with their semi-submersible rig, the Hercules. By Equinor's estimates, the Bay du Nord project has the potential to produce 94 to 188,000 barrels of oil per day for 12 to 20 years. The low end of that estimate is about 40% of what Newfoundland's offshore wells produce now. At the high end, it would produce almost as much in 12 years as the existing projects produced in the past 25 years. But despite paying $1.8 billion for the lease and spending who knows how much on the exploration, Equinor isn't interested right now. It has suspended the project for up to 3 years, citing economic reasons. Equinor's report on the Bay du Nord doesn't say much about how much gas is in the formation. There are plans, however, to use it to power the platforms, re-inject what they can, and flare off the rest. Unlike the offshore deposits in Norway, there's no infrastructure available that would allow for them to sell the gas. If there was, the economics of the deposits might be different. And if these deposits were managed the way things are managed in Norway, there would be infrastructure or a plan for it. Like any company, Equinor is going to develop its assets when it makes the most sense for itself as an enterprise, for the benefit of its partners and its shareholders. It doesn't really matter how desperately Canada or Newfoundland wants Equinor to develop Bay du Nord, they can't make them. Norway has earned the right and the ability to do what they want when they want, because they took control of these assets by drilling them and owning them outright from the very beginning when they were discovered. Newfoundland's first offshore oil wells got drilled around the same time as Norway's, but in the intervening period, while Norway was drilling 1,250 exploration wells and developing a whole industry, there have only been around 185 exploration holes drilled in all of Newfoundland. There's more than one reason for that, but the core of it is that the governments in Newfoundland and Canada, for that matter, aren't really stakeholders in the industry the way Norway is. They're more like landlords. But hey, that's the way we do things in Canada. We hand over big assets to oligopolies and big corporations and sit around and go, gee, I wonder why there's no productive industry here. And I'll just sit around with our thumbs up our ass as we watch what could be a great industry be nothing because we're too busy trying to rent seek and extract as much money out of the assets that we have as quickly as we can and not have a long-term vision for how we can create economic productivity. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Also, let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks, everybody.